certainly was not. Question number 9, Grant Robertson.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Acting Minister of Finance. How much will real wages rise in percentage terms over the 2017 and 2018 years, according to the Half-Year Economic and Fiscal Update?
The Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Mr Speaker, HIEFU forecasts show strong labour market growth in the period to 2021, with unemployment expected to drop to 4.3%, another 150,000 jobs to be created, and the average wage to increase by $7,500 to $66,000. In combination with an expected fall in net migration and assuming inflation returns closer to its long-run average, Treasury forecasts real wage increases of 0.1% in 2017, 0.2% in 2018, 0.7% in 2019, 1.1% in 2020 and 0.9% in 2021. These are, of course, forecasts, Mr Speaker, and, of course, we'll see how they roll out in practice.
Supplementary question, Mr Speaker.
Order. Supplementary question. Grant Robertson.
Does he think that an average wage earner getting $11 a week in the face of record increases in housing costs and an average increase of rentals of at least $20 a week represents a fair share of the economy for working people?
The Honourable
Mr
Stephen
Speaker,
Joyce.
I presume the member is basing that on Treasury's predictions, and I should point out to him that Treasury's forecasting in relation to real wage growth has undershot the actual real wage growth 3 times in the last 4 years. And in fact, since 2008, average Kiwi wages are up around 25%, which is almost double the increase in the cost of living over the same period. So we don't yet know how that's going to roll out in the years ahead, but I think if you're a betting man looking at Treasury's forecast for the last 4 years, you'd say probably a little bit ahead of what they're proposing.
Supplementary question, Mr Speaker.
Supplementary question, Grant Robertson.
Can he confirm he'll be using those same Treasury forecasts when he decides whether or not to do tax cuts?
The Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Well, Mr Speaker, in terms of the government's spending intentions and all its fiscal intentions, we'll make decisions at the time based on the actual accounts and also the forecast accounts, as always done. But I would point out to the member that in terms of real wage growth, the biggest variable has actually been the CPI inflation figure. Now, Treasury's predicting that that will return to 2% by 2018. It has, of course, been 0.4% in each of the last 2 years. Those predictions are yet to be borne out.
Supplementary question, Mr Speaker.
Supplementary question, Grant Robertson.
Does he think it is fair that salary increases for chief executives have increased at 4 times the rate of average workers in the last year?
The Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Mr Speaker, I'd have to check the member's figures on that and where he's got those from. But the actual fact is that wage growth over the last year has been strong relative to inflation. Average weekly wages are up 1.9% compared to an inflation rate of 0.2%. So regardless of the individual elements of that, overall Kiwi workers have done far better than inflation, and we're very pleased for them for that.
Supplementary question, Mr Speaker.
Supplementary question, Grant Robertson.
What, if anything, will he do differently from his predecessor, if he becomes the Minister of Finance, to fulfil the commitment of the new Prime Minister that he will ensure the benefits of growth are widely shared?
The Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Well, Mr Speaker, this government is already ensuring just that.
No.
Real wages have been growing at twice. The wages have been growing at twice the rate of inflation, Mr Speaker. I know the members aren't accustomed to this because if you go back to 2008, they were actually growing nominally at 5%, but then inflation was around 5% as well. Now, with very low inflation rates, real wages have been growing, and I know that's not something the Labor Party is familiar with.
Mr Speaker.
Supplementary question, Grant Robertson.
So does he really think that growth in real wages of 0.1% and 0.2% in the next 2 years represents a government that is ensuring that the benefits of growth is widely shared?
The Honourable
Well,
Stephen
Mr.
Joyce.
Speaker, this sort of gets to the heart of Mr. Robertson's train-spotting approach to the finance portfolio, because it's not governments that decide the 0.0 or 0.1%. It's decided by the strength of the economy, Mr. Speaker, and this government is absolutely focused on improving the competitiveness of the New Zealand economy, and that has flown through into real wage growth, and I'm prepared to predict that it will continue to flow into real wage growth, only provided you continue to elect a national-led government.